I hadn't originally planned to do this because it was originally going to be Ultimate Cars versus Meruem, and the only thing I can really do with that is make a video on how that wouldn't work, but it made me think of JoJo versus Hunter in general. I saw similarities in stands and Nen, and I originally wanted to make Hamon versus Nen, but anyone that's watched both Hunter and JoJo should know how that goes. So I wanted to match Nen and stands up and see how that fares. We're going to be going over both individually, match them up, and show reasons why one is better than the other, and then finish it off with a final verdict. Let's start this off with JoJo since, hey, I already post a lot of JoJo videos, so might as well. So stands are a phenomena in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Stands are a physical manifestation of a stand user's fighting spirit. It can be summoned and returned, primarily based on the user's mental strength. Stands cannot be seen by non-stand users, and they can also not be touched by anything besides stands. So the only way to fight a stand is with another one. Now, stands are different for every user for the most part, and what a stand is like is usually dependent on how the person who obtains the stand is. There's a stand chart, but I see the charts as individual tracking since you can't really compare stats. It's possible that the chart will really only matter when in the specific part of JoJo when that stand is in, but there's more evidence that the chart measures each stand and each stat individually. The stand chart measures strength, speed, range, durability, precision, and developmental potential. Potential shows if your stand has room to grow or it's already peaked. Now, stand stats can also go down if the user gets older because that's just the user getting older. Now, stands have special abilities, and that's also different when it comes to each stand. There will be some similar stand abilities or abilities that are exactly the same. You can't train a stand to make them stronger, and you also cannot create new abilities, with the exception of the arrow. You work with what you have when you have a stand. Now, it's possible to learn things you didn't know you could do before, but that's all in the range of the stand. If you have a fire stand, you're not going to learn how to manipulate water, but you could possibly learn many ways how to use the fire that you manipulate. And to get a stand, you have to be born with it, have it pass it down through your bloodline somehow, or be stabbed by the stand arrow, which is an arrow that can give stands that was crafted from a meteorite from space. Yeah, I know, it's pretty bizarre show, yada yada. Oh, and the only way to destroy a stand is with another stand. If you destroy the stand, then you most likely kill the user, and vice versa. Now, there are very specific stands where some stuff I said doesn't really apply to them, some directly applies to them, and some have things that I'm not going to address because it would just be too much to go in depth with each and every individual odd stand. Now, to finish it off, there are types of stands. Stands fit into one of 5 types, some may be mixed with the types. The categories don't really affect the stands too much, but you can pretty much tell what stand category does what when you see the stands in there. The most common stand type would be the natural humanoid. Those are your star platinums, your crazy diamonds, and all of your aura stuff. And other stands can make the sounds too. They're just usually the ones to be the most physical. Now that we're finished with stands, because everything I went over is really all you're going to need for an explanation, we're getting on into Nen, because finally, a new franchise, it's been so long, and I want to be talking about something else. Now, Nen is a technique. This technique lets you use and manipulate your life energy or aura. That's an unintentional JoJo joke, just on to the next one. It being life energy means that everyone has the ability to learn Nen. The thing with it being your life energy means that overusing it to the point of depletion would most likely kill you, so there's a limit with Nen, but that limit can be extended pretty far with training. Another thing to take note on is that Nen can be trained. You can train it to strengthen it and create abilities. Now, while Nen is something that everyone can learn, there's one of 6 types of aura that you can be born with. The type of aura you have will define what way that you'll be able to incorporate your aura into your abilities. The types are Enhancer, Transmuter, Conjurer, Emitter, Manipulator, and Specialist. There are also principles and advanced techniques you learn before you make your own abilities, so there's a lot going into learning, crafting, and mastering Nen. Without getting too specific with Nen abilities, that's really it for the information when getting on into this. Now, this is where we match up the two off of bullet points that I had made. First one, you can't see stands unless you have a stand. That case stands with Nen also because if you don't use Nen, then you can't see Nen either. Stands are based off of your spirit, Nen is based off of your life energy. Nen is only controlled by the user, but a stand doesn't require the user to do anything really. The fighting in Hunter focuses mainly on the person and how they use their abilities. When it comes to JoJo and stand users, they kinda just do what the name says and stand there. It's mostly because these are just regular people with no enhancements or anything really on them. While that seems like a bad thing when going against active fighters, it really isn't that bad when coming to main stands. Like if you were to have Gon versus Jotaro in Star Platinum, Gon could be very quick on getting around Jotaro, but he's going to have to get in range of him to hit him. When in range, he's at risk of getting hit with invisible 300-mile-per-hour boulder-sized diamond-shattering punches, and at the same time, Jotaro is susceptible to getting speed blitzed if he's not in his A game, and with one mistake, Jotaro can be ended pretty bad. Remove both Jotaro and Gon, and the game of stand user versus Nen user can be a pretty difficult stamina game for the Nen user. Using a stand is nowhere near as taxing as being an active Nen user because it only requires your mental strength. If you can create an active, competent thought, then you can still make actions with your stands. Now, onto the topic of abilities. Nen as a whole has better abilities when comparing to all Nen abilities to all stand abilities, and that's just me averaging it. While in a mass there are better Nen abilities, a top 10 or top 8 stand abilities wipe the floor with any Nen ability. The reason for that is that because stand abilities get into time manipulation, space manipulation, and even reality manipulation. And I did the math for it, and 15% of stands are untouchable when it comes to stands versus Nen fights. Aside from that, I believe that Nen would reign pretty strong in the end. That's with removing the top 25 strongest stands and top 25 strongest Nen abilities. Now, this is where stands are better than Nen. You can't destroy stands unless you have one, and it's also invisible to those who don't have them. So you can constantly have the barrier of defense around you if all you have to do is just focus on your opponent. Stands don't require physical stamina, so if it's a match on who's lasting out, then the stand user can win majority of the time. At the same time, it doesn't really matter what stand is fighting. Now, where I see stands are very strong is when the abilities are space or time related. Those abilities really put the stand and the user ahead of the game when it comes to all of these scenario fights. Now, this is where Nen is better than stands. Nen being focused on making the user stronger is a strong factor. Being able to train Nen is also an amazing factor too. You can widen your horizons for your abilities, or you can train and sculpt that one specific ability that you have. Everything on stands are usually capped and go down over time. You can't train your stand to get stronger. With enough Nen training, you can become a destructive powerhouse. The biggest example I could think of is Uvogin, or well, you guys just call him Uvo because it's way easier than his actual name. It's a good thing that stands are the only things that can hit stands, because if that wasn't the case, I can honestly tell you that it would be a complete wipe for a good amount of them. So this is going to be my final verdict on the Nen versus stance thoughts. Nen being a life energy that can be sculpted and trained is great for the individual that plans to be a threat. Stands being left up to a user's mental strength and fighting spirit is iffy if you know that person would not be exactly made for something like that. But this doesn't mean that Nen would be better in the case of a regular person. To learn Nen, you should be already qualified to be a hunter, which is a very, very extensive and difficult process for the regular man. If you obtained a stand in any way possible, it's pretty easy, and it's a generally pretty easy process compared to following the requirements to start learning Nen. So stands are better than Nen for the regular people because it can make anyone into a possible threat without any training whatsoever. So Nen is amazing and great for training when it comes to those who are qualified and made for it, but if you're an average Joe, then you might as well just try your luck with getting a stand. Stand abilities are busted too, so that makes up for a lot of it when you actually want to put certain characters against each other, but again, that's only 15% of stands. So number wise, it would mean that Nen wins overall in the end. When it comes to full on fights, then you only really need one stand to completely destroy all Nen users, and that's pretty unfortunate, but for the most part, you guys understand this. And altogether, Nen's gonna win, but if you actually want to put like these actual fights, like you're gonna be like, hey, let's do all these stands versus all these Nen users, you're only gonna need about one, and that's just the wrap of it all. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm very, it seems, I guess it had to have seemed like a very difficult sided battle, because it's just like, oh man, is Caleb really gonna side with stands or Nen? I really want to be the most non-biased person when it comes to this type of stuff, because I very much enjoy both JoJo and Hunter x Hunter, but it's a lot of people, you know, they're not onto the wave or something like that. There's a lot of other shows and examples and stuff like that that I want to go over and put in these versus battles, but it's just dependent on what exactly who wants to see what. I would love to know if you guys want to see My Hero in the course of it all. Maybe more Hunter x Hunter content in general, maybe introducing that more. I'm going to be doing more My Hero in the future too, so there's that. Just put that all together. If there's anything you guys want to know, you want to see put up against each other, just comment it all. Any fights you guys have in mind. If you guys want me to do the Meruem versus Ultimate Cars video, I'm totally fine with doing that and showing you guys why it's such a difficult thing to do, because it's going over that is it was a lot. I can easily tell you guys it was a lot, but it took me way too long to wrap this up. I thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys liked the video, then like the video. If you're a big Hunter fan, tell me in the comments, because I would really love to know how many Hunter fans are out there that actually subscribe to me. If you're a JoJo fan that wants to see more stuff than just JoJo, then also comment that too, because that'd be great. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'm almost at 20k. I'm fucking amazed by it. Thank you guys for watching. Until the next one though. So peace out and Godspeed.